The Israeli army has a track record of lying, but the military false news machine has gone into overdrive in Gaza.
UNRWA is a front for Hamas.
The army has denied deliberately bombing civilians, hospitals, doctors, columns of evacuating patients. It's denied opening fire on refugees queuing up for food. It's denying starving over 2 million Palestinians to force them to leave. It's denying genocide.
מי שירה על אזורי החצייה, המעבר, המסדרון הבטוח, זה לא ישראל, זה החמאס. מי שמשתמש באזרחים עזתים כמגן אנושי, זה לא ישראל, זה החמאס. מי שמתמקם בבתי חולים, בבתי ספר, במתקנים של אונר"א, של האום, זה לא ישראל, זה החמאס. ולכן האחריות שצריך להפנות לגבי פגיעה באזרחים, זה לא על ישראל, זה על החמאס.
All things the world knows it is doing. So why should 17 countries instantly suspend funding to UNRWA, the one UN agency which is keeping Gazans alive, over the army's claims that Hamas has infiltrated the organization?
We have extremely serious allegations against staff working for UNRWA. And it is absolutely obvious that these allegations need to be investigated seriously.
So that only underscores the importance of UNRWA tackling this as quickly, as effectively, and as thoroughly as possible.
Why do that before checking out those claims themselves? They lied about the 40 babies beheaded on October the 7th. They lied about serial rape. Why believe them this time?
Let me preface these remarks with I never, ever believe Israeli figures. I've been in the government too long to know that the Israelis are patent liars. In their intelligence community, in their propaganda community, certainly, and in their leadership, they are inveterate liars.
But 17 countries did just that. And the result is that UNRWA has 4 weeks left before it will have to stop operating in Gaza. UNRWA is currently giving over 100 million displaced people in Gaza shelter in 154 sites. UNRWA is by far the largest relief agency operating in this war zone. UNRWA trucks, driven by UNRWA drivers, pick up the meagre supplies Israel lets through after weeks of delay for each lorry load.
If the countries that suspended their funding to UNRWA maintain their decision, the impact will be catastrophic on the people of Gaza right now as the war continues, as the displacement continues.
UNRWA does the loading and offloading, the sifting through aid in their warehouses and the distribution, all this under constant bombardment. UNRWA supplies all the other UN agencies working there. Take UNRWA out and you take the backbone of relief work out in Gaza.
At the moment, beyond political decisions which are GA bound, there is no way any organization can replace or substitute the tremendous capacity, the fabric of UNRWA, the ability and their knowledge of the population in Gaza.
And on the allegations themselves, at first 12, then 190, then 1,200 of its employees were members of Hamas. They're things that don't add up. Each year, UNRWA shares lists of its employees to each host government where it works. Each government has a right to vet that list and object. UNRWA gave the list of employees in Gaza to Israel in May last year. They never got a response or an objection.
UNRWA shares the full list of names of its staff in Gaza and the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, with Israel every year. So the list is known. The list of our staff is known to the government of Israel every year.
Another thing bothers me. The army claimed to have uncovered a Hamas membership list on a computer in Gaza and cross-checked that with the UNRWA list. That is how they came up with the figure of 10% of UNRWA in Gaza are Hamas. But there's just one problem with that. Hamas doesn't have a membership list. Like all Islamist organizations, it's organized in cells. Secrecy is hardwired into the organization. The political bureau in Doha and Beirut had no forewarning of the October the 7th attack, which was organized by 4 leaders in Gaza. This is why Israel has little reliable intelligence about Hamas. why it was surprised by the extent of the tunnel network or the effectiveness of anti-tank rockets. So why does Israel want to collapse UNRWA? It's nothing to do with Hamas or Gaza. UNRWA is as old as the State of Israel, and there's a reason for that.
The whole ethos of UNRWA since the beginning, since its inception in 1948, has been, let's keep the refugee crisis fresh. Let's give these refugees, this is the only refugee problem which is inherited. We're in 5 generations now, and it's an inherited problem. And the result of that is essentially that they don't solve the problem, they just perpetuate it.
When the war which created Israel ended in 1948, the UN mediator for Palestine, a Swedish diplomat called Folke Bernadotte, formulated the concept of the right of return for 700,000 refugees created by the establishment of Israel. It was incorporated into Resolution 194, and Israel's acceptance of it was made a condition of entry into the UN. UNRWA was established a year later to provide education, healthcare and social services to the refugees created by Israel. Today, it's the only organisation that defines a Palestinian refugee as someone whose place of residence was Palestine between June 1946 and May 1948. The refugee status applies to all their descendants, which means that UNRWA now aids more than 5 million registered refugees. This is what Israel wants to destroy. No UNRWA, no refugees. No refugees, no problem. Israel accuses UNRWA of perpetuating the Palestinian problem, while it itself is busy creating hundreds of thousands of more refugees. On the very day the UNRWA story was raging, 12 ministers in the Israeli cabinet attended a conference calling on Israeli Jews to resettle Gaza. One of the founders of the movement is a convicted murderer, Uzi Shabar, who did 7 years in prison for killing 3 students in Hebron. 12 ministers of the government, including some from Likud, debated the concept of voluntary emigration. Shlomo Charki, the communications minister from Likud, tried to maintain that voluntary is at times a state you impose until they give their consent.
בהחלט צריך לעודד הגירה, כמה שפחות יהיה לחץ ברצועת עזה של גורמים שנכון, הם אולי בלתי מעורבים עכשיו, אבל הם לא אוהבי ישראל ומחנכים את הילדים שלהם לטרור. הייתי רוצה, והיינו רוצים לראות, ודיברנו על זה בישיבות ממשלה. זה לא שאגב, אין מדינות שרוצות לקלוט אותם, אף אחד לא רוצה, גם אם נשלם להם הרבה מאוד כסף. הגירה מרצון זה דבר חשוב, אין בו שום פגיעה בזכויות אדם.
The US and UK lecture the world about a law-based order. The World Court has ordered Israel to take all measures to comply with the Genocide Convention. Israel's response to that binding legal order is to send 12 ministers to a conference openly calling for ethnic cleansing in Gaza. It's the US and EU policy to create a Palestinian state. It is Israel's policy to do everything in its power to prevent that from happening, creating more and more refugees and collapsing the UN organization trying to help them.
They will move. They will move. The Arabs will move. Why do you say that? If you don't give them, we want to have our hostages back, right? So we don't give them food, we don't give the Arabs anything. They will have to leave. The world will accept them.
The US says it wants to build a Palestinian state, while Israel is actively collapsing one. But America and Europe plough on, subverting all attempts by the World Court, the International Criminal Court and the UN Security Council to bring Israel to account. When future generations write the history of the collapse of the US as a world leader, it's moments like these that will go down as the seminal ones in Western decay.